November 13th, 2022, 4:17 a.m. The quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho, lay under a blanket of frost. Inside a three-story off-campus house on King Road, the faint glow of Christmas lights flickered against the walls. For University of Idaho students, Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were asleep after a night out. But just before dawn, a shadow moved through the home. Silent, calculated, the figure carried a large, fixed-blade knife. What happened over the next few minutes would shatter the safety of this tight-knit community and ignite one of the most watched murder cases in America. By sunrise, the idyllic image of Moscow was gone. Inside that house, police discovered one of the most chilling crime scenes in Idaho history. All four students had been brutally stabbed in their bedrooms. There were no signs of forced entry, no screams heard by neighbors. The killer seemed to vanish into thin air. November 13th, 2022, 11:58 a.m. A 911 call from inside the house, placed from one of the surviving roommates' phones, brought officers rushing to King Road. Body camera footage later revealed stunned officers stepping carefully through the scene, their breath visible in the cold air, their faces pale at the horror they had just witnessed. Kaylee and Madison, lifelong best friends, were found together in the upstairs bedroom. Xana and Ethan, a couple, were on the second floor. Their lives, their dreams, their futures, gone. The crime stunned the nation. Who could kill for young people in such a targeted, violent manner and leave almost nothing behind? Detectives began piecing together the victims' final hours. In the days immediately following the murders, Moscow became a place where every face was a question mark and every shadow felt heavier than usual. Students left campus early for winter break. Parents called their children hourly, their voices tight with fear. The King Road house, once a place of laughter and late-night gatherings, was now surrounded by yellow police tape, its windows dark, its silence oppressive. Detectives combed through hundreds of tips, some from locals, others from as far away as Florida and Alaska. A neighbor swore they had seen a strange figure near the wooded area behind the house days before the killings. A clerk at a nearby gas station recalled selling fuel to a nervous young man driving a white sedan in the early morning hours of November 13th. Behind the scenes, FBI behavioral analysts studied the killer's actions. The precision of the attack suggested planning, not impulse. The use of a fixed-blade knife pointed to someone comfortable with close-range violence, someone confident enough to leave without a trace. But the randomness of the victims, two women upstairs, a couple on the middle floor, raised the haunting possibility that the killer's motive might never be fully understood. Social media turned the case into a storm. Armchair detectives flooded TikTok, YouTube, and Reddit with theories. Some were plausible, others were cruel, accusing innocent people of involvement. The noise threatened to drown out the facts, forcing police to guard certain details closely. Meanwhile, the surviving roommates struggled with the weight of survival. One had awoken in the early hours to strange noises, what she thought were harmless sounds of friends returning from a night out. When she stepped into the hallway, she froze. A tall figure in black, masked, moving silently toward the sliding glass door. The image would haunt her forever. As the investigation stretched on, patience began to fray. Critics questioned whether the Moscow Police Department, unused to handling high-profile homicide cases, was in over its head. But in truth, the pieces were slowly aligning. A car, a phone signal, a shadow of a name that would soon become infamous. Surveillance footage showed Kaylee and Madison at a downtown food truck around 1:40 a.m., laughing, unaware they were being followed. Xana and Ethan had been at a fraternity party earlier in the night. The surviving roommates had gone to bed, oblivious to the nightmare that would unfold just a few feet away. For weeks, the case went cold in the public eye. Rumors spread online about ex-boyfriends, stalkers, jealous classmates. But behind the scenes, investigators were quietly tracking a suspect, Bryan Kohberger, a 28-year-old criminology Ph.D. student at nearby Washington State University. What caught their attention? Surveillance footage captured a white Hyundai Elantra circling the King Road neighborhood multiple times before the murders. Cell phone data later revealed Kohberger's phone had been near the victim's house 12 times in the months before the killings. December 30th, 2022, 1:30 a.m. In the quiet Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania, FBI agents and Pennsylvania State Police surrounded Kohberger's family home. Inside, he was arrested without incident. In his possession, black clothing, gloves, and a knife sheath with a snap closure, later matched through DNA to the crime scene in Moscow. The arrest electrified the media. Cameras swarmed the courthouse. Every detail, his past, his studies, his mannerisms, was dissected. Former classmates recalled his intense interest in the psychology of criminals. A chilling detail emerged. After the murders, Kohberger continued attending classes and even participated in discussions about forensic evidence. As the case prepared for trial, Kohberger maintained his innocence. His attorneys suggested the DNA evidence could have been planted. But the state's case was formidable. Surveillance video, phone records, eyewitness testimony from a surviving roommate who described seeing a man in black with bushy eyebrows leaving the house. For the victims' families, the wait for justice was agonizing. Court dates were pushed back, hearings delayed. The college community lived under the weight of unanswered questions. Then came the unexpected twist. June 30th, 2025, 4:15 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. A notice of hearing was filed in Latta County. Bryan Kohberger intended to change his plea. The scheduled hearing, July 2nd, 2025, at 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, would end the possibility of a trial. In exchange for pleading guilty to all charges, Kohberger would receive life in prison without the possibility of parole, avoiding the death penalty. The news hit the victims' families with mixed emotions: relief that they would be spared the trauma of a lengthy trial, but sorrow that the true why might never be fully explained. July 2nd, 2025, 11 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. The packed courtroom fell silent as Kohberger, wearing a plain orange jumpsuit, stood before the judge. His voice was steady as he answered the questions required for the plea. "Guilty," he said, "for times, once for each life taken." Kaylee's mother clutched a framed photo of her daughter. Madison's father stared directly at Kohberger, his hands trembling. Xana's family sat together, their grief a silent force in the room. Ethan's siblings leaned into one another, tears falling quietly. When the judge handed down the sentence, life without parole, there was no applause, no cheers. Just the heavy sound of lives forever changed. The Moscow murders had ended not with a dramatic jury verdict, but with a quiet admission of guilt from the man who had stalked, hunted, and taken 4 young lives. Outside the courthouse, snow began to fall, unseasonably early for July. Reporters spoke into cameras. Here at Crimes Uncoded, we're not just telling crime stories. We're breaking down the legal codes that define them. Make sure to subscribe, because next up, the perfect murder and the law that couldn't touch it.